Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food system storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network since 2009. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
Culture and Flavor is a podcast about food and culture centered in Black and Indigenous foodways, hosted by myself, Zella Palmer, right here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Each episode features high vibrational conversations with cultural bearers, chefs, farmers, scholars, barbecue pitmasters, and more. Where there is flavor, there is history. Join me on Culture and Flavor and all of my guests as we share stories that will have you praise dancing, cooking, conjuring, and inspiring your culinary journey. Welcome to another beautiful episode of Culture and Flavor with Zella Palmer. Today, y'all, I am so excited to have my friends Angie and June Provost on this episode. They are legends, the GOATs in Black farming and in sugarcane. And I'm just so excited to have this conversation with them. They are farmer activists that reside in New Iberia, Louisiana. They're creators of the Provost Initiative, a venture that encompasses a for-profit farm named Provost Farm and a nonprofit organization called the Provost Faith Heritage Center and Community Gardens. You might remember them as they were featured in the 1619 project by Nicole Hannah-Jones when they received a national spotlight on their plight as Black farmers in sugarcane in Louisiana. I just am so excited to have this conversation, and I hope you really enjoy and pull up a seat and really enjoy this conversation that we're about to have. So welcome to Angie and June to Culture and Flavor.
Hello. Hi, Zella. Hi, everyone. Thank y'all for having us here today.
So good to be here.
So good to be. I'm so happy to hear you guys' voice because I haven't seen you all in a minute. So I'm glad to catch up and, just really get into this conversation because I truly admire you all and the work that you all have done over the years. And just you all are such a light for so many in the farming community. So thank you.
Thank you, Zella. And thank you for bringing your light to such an important issue. So many things surround our foodways, the way we grow food. So we're just thankful to have you there as a voice as well.
Yeah, that means a lot coming from you. So yes.
Oh, thank y'all. So I just wanted, for our listeners who are new to you guys' story, if you could just talk a little bit about, your brief history and what happened to your sugarcane farm that really, put you all on a national light, on a national stage. Mm-hmm.
So June and I love to call ourselves multi-generational farm owners. Let's acknowledge our ancestors who have been farming and cultivating the land for millennia since the dawn of humankind. But just in logistics, June's family were a 5,000 acre farm operation. It was part of a sharecropping venture plus an ownership venture where they owned their own land. And beginning around 2006, between 2008, there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of reprisal, and a lot of insidious systemic issues that the family faced. And June took the brunt of it, meaning that he was required to inherit a lot of generational debt, and also a lot of generational issues that we face as Black people, as Black farmers. So, in farming that 5,000 acres, he was one of the largest, I could call you one of the largest farm operators in the state of Louisiana, individual operators. And, with our history in the United States, although farming is thought of as this wholesome industry, for Black farmers, we're faced with a lot of setbacks in terms of trying to cultivate the land and make a living out of that. And that's exactly what happened to June.
And why it was so important for us to speak out, we were in a community of nothing but Black sugarcane farmers. I mean, to be exact, the late 90s, early 2000s, there were over 60 African-American farming families in this community, over 60. And that's some farms that had 3 and 4, kids that were, ready to take over the farm. And now we're down to 4. That's frightening. I mean, you talk about generational wealth. You know how much generational wealth was lost from this?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add that many of the families here that were farming came out of slavery, of enslavement, farming land, right? So some of us had the privilege of farming prior to emancipation. Some of us began farming land during Reconstruction. So you're talking about multi-generational farm ownership within the Black community here in Acadiana. But that comes whenever you see, you can look at this historically. Whenever you see Black folks making a way for themselves, you will see reprisal throughout history. And that's exactly what has transpired within these families here in South Louisiana, right? That are Black sugarcane farmers. It's not because these folks didn't want to get up and do their job or that they didn't have the passion for it. This is in our DNA. This is what we do. This is what we're proud of doing. So there always is an explanation of systemic issues that causes this loss in communities such as ours.
And they always say that farmers never retire, and it's true. You see these white farmers here in their trucks riding and they're 90, 95 years old. But as Black farmers, the stress overtake us so bad. I mean, we're lucky if we see 70 years old. White farmers, farming it can be difficult. You have to worry about the weather, you're going to catch hurricane, drought, those normal things. But as Black farmers, we have to worry about, are we going to get a crop loan? If we do get a crop loan, when is that crop loan going to be there? Because in farming, you need your funds at a certain time. And as Black farmers, we were always 2 or 3 months behind, and you can't make that up. So it's the added stress that's on us at all times.
Exactly. And that added stress is creating or has created a system of abuse upon us that's emasculated the Black male, that's put extra burdens on Black females. All of these things are happening and are, have happened and are still happening. And one of the things that we see like transpiring through feudalism, through discrimination, all of these old tactics that were brought over here, we see these effects happening across the nation in a cross-sector way. So meaning that although white farmers may have to only worry about like the weather or some sort of mishap on the farm, but because of this system of abuse that we've built, we're all worrying about climate change right now. We're all worrying about healthcare. We're all worrying about those things that a systemic society has built. So our mission and drive is to be able to discuss why diversity and inclusion of thought and action is so important, because it's not just about the farming aspect, the owning of a business, but it's the ability to own a business, to provide your voice, to provide insight and solutions to problems that affect us directly, but indirectly affect our white brothers and sisters, our Native brothers and sisters. All of these things affect us all. And so that's why we're here. We're here to spread the message that diversity and inclusion is what's needed to correct all these wrongs.
I remember watching, thank you for sharing that. And I think a couple of, things happened while you all were in the, throes of, fighting for your land to come back to you, as well as, just trying to be in community and be a voice for the voiceless. Queen Sugar came out, the 1619 Project came out, that really, I think, helped shed a lot of light on Black farmers that I hadn't seen since, really, in a long time, except for Pickford versus Glickman Supreme Court decision. And I'm curious, I would love for you all to tell just some of the tactics that were used on you all as far as, how it affects voting, how it affects, having to go to the government to get crops and loans, and, even just being able to be in those spaces where decisions are made over land.
Right. So I think what it is that it's honestly about resources. If we don't have the resources to have a prosperous life, then we're not going to participate in voting. We're not going to be able to participate in building wealth for our communities and infrastructure and all of those things that happen, right? So it starts off with, let me limit these folks' ability to farm their land. I'm going to cut off their resources from the beginning. And then I'm going to put them in further debt, in debt servitude or debt peonage, so that even if they try to make some money, they'll be so busy and worried about paying our debt that are their debt that has been accumulated, whether through ill-gotten gains or what have you by the USDA, that it makes it difficult for us to move forward in any aspect or sector of life. So it's about cutting those resources. And once you've cut those resources, and like I said, if we've made a little bit of headway, well, then here comes the reprisal. Here comes the retaliation. So when we were, for example, we went to Southern University and LSU Ag for assistance in 2013, early 2014, to say, hey, guys, we need help here. Folks got wind of that, right? And that's when the real issues really began with reprisal, meaning that we had dead cats put in equipment. We had equipment, the vandalizing of the tractors escalated. I remember one time working in the flower bed in my mother-in-law's front yard, and there was this guy in this fancy F-250 truck with his slick back hair, just looking at me and watching me work in the front yard. And when I went to approach him or film him, he drove off. I actually posted it on Twitter when it happened because we were really scared. I mean, we were filing numerous police reports, but there were no solutions or no form of correction provided to us by the very institutions that are there that are meant to protect us. So those are sort of the things that happen. So it's cutting your resources. It's making you scared, right, for your life and for the lives of your family members. And so those things can bring about disenfranchisement. It can make you apathetic. It can make you depressed mentally, physically, all of those things. Those are things that have transpired through chattel slavery, through discrimination, Jim Crow laws, to now.
And I can't express enough how it affect us. You know, when we're going in the field early that morning and you see 3 dead cats lined up in a tractor, I mean, that's not anybody just trying to play games. That was a sign. I mean, that was really a sign for us. Like, it's people want to hurt us.
Right.
It's not just like they're spray painting one of the tractors. I mean, they were taking injector pumps off, things that, you have to know what you're doing to do those things to the equipment. But it was whatever it took to delay our farm, make it cost more money for us to farm.
Right.
They wanted us out by any means necessary.
And I also have to say this. So as historically in our community as Black people, we've had this idea of farming, again, that has come from slavery and Jim Crow, chain gangs and debt peonage, right? So that means that we've always been told that we farm other people's land and not our own, that we make money. We're like a source of passive income for the planter class. So what that always told us is we were experiencing these things. It wasn't because we didn't know what they were doing. So when folks at the USDA or the bank or wherever would tell us, you just don't know how to farm, we never believed them, right? We never really took that in as something that is really something that we should internalize and take advice from, right? What we understood is that it was a means of control. And all of these things that were happening to us, we understood it was because they wanted what we had, right? They wanted the ability to take over our lands, to take over our farms, to take over our lifestyles. So we understood the value of what it was we were doing and what it was we were trying to create.
And as we understood it, it didn't make it any better for us to see, here I am, a 4th-generation farmer. That's all I ever did do. This is my life. It's my passion. It's everything to me. And they want me out. But then you have a young white grower with no experience whatsoever, coming and taking your land. And all of a sudden in 2-3 years, they're 4,000 acres. It's a hurtful thing, though, to see that. Regardless if we know what's going on, it's still hurtful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And, when the 1619 project came out, it caused so much controversy that, to even discuss the legacies of slavery, and a slew of laws, a ban on books, a national fear of discussing American history came about. But in that was you all's story. And sugar, which isn't always featured when we talk about farming. It's soy, it's, corn, etc. I would love for you all to talk about the deep history of sugar in Louisiana.
Right. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Zella.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the history of sugar, sugar is what built Louisiana's economy, and it still does. Of course, we're a heavy oil industry state, but we're really truly based on agriculture and agritourism. And so sugar is the driving force of our economy. You cannot go anywhere from New Orleans to, I would say, maybe Alexandria to Lafayette, onward even to Lake Charles, where you're not going to be touched by something that sugar hasn't created or that the USDA is not involved in. And so just thinking about that, I often think about, too, what is owed to our families and our communities based on the fact that it was their bodies that were used and their minds that were used to build this industry. And so talking about, how many enslaved people were working on a plantation that we probably were descendants of. Like I can actually... I sit 20 miles from the very sugar plantation that my great-great-grandfather was enslaved on, right? And so, just thinking about the powerful driving force that is sugar in the state of Louisiana, but that also transpires to nationally and globally. Those things are so important.
And for me, it's just, when you're a 4th-generation, on both sides, my mom's side and my dad's side. And when we were doing the 1619, we actually went in the field where my grandfather planted sugarcane X amount of years ago. And you feel something when you walk that ground that your grandfather walked. You feel something in you. It's hard to explain. And I always tell people, being in a tractor, chopping the dirt, you get a smell. I'll say that every time because it's true. But being in a certain plot of land that your grandfather and your dad worked, I mean, it's indescribable. Because I mean, for me, I idolized my dad. My dad was my hero, and to do what my dad was doing is something I wanted to do, and my dad always wanted to pass it over to his kids and grandkids. And it hurt so bad because they were robbing us from that.
And one of the things I'd like to add, that sugarcane farming is so much in our DNA. One of the things June forgets to tell people is that his ancestors are part of the Olivier chain, right? So they are descendants of Charles de Vinzant Olivier, and an enslaved woman who came here and farmed that very plot where we were standing and recording the podcast for 1619. So that's some powerful stuff, right? So when we live here in New Iberia, we're here working in the field, but when we go visit you all in New Orleans, we understand that New Orleans was the playground for the people who were enslaving folks here in New Iberia. There are so many stories, and it's like this never-ending web of history that we deal with here in terms of sugarcane, the industry, and sugarcane, how it deals with us as families.
And just to add to, it's just like, sugarcane is like 100-day harvest. You start in October and usually end in January. But I just remember the times of all the Black farmers in our community and the communities next to us. Mardi Gras was a time that all the farmers got together, either went to a certain farmer shop or we all got together to do a Mardi Gras celebration. And all of that is gone now. All of those different things are gone. I mean, and we're trying to bring it back, but it's just so many families have been robbed. I can't say that enough.
It's difficult to bring things back when you see how your neighborhood school has been shut down and moved further down the neighborhood where the kids can't walk to or get to easily, when the park has shut down, when the community store has shut down, when the exit to your neighborhood has been closed. Those things make it difficult to move forward, but we are all doing it. We're doing it the best way we can.
Ooh, powerful conversation. And on that note, we're going to have a word from our listeners. Thank you for listening to Culture and Flavor. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. And when we come back, we'll talk with the provost about their new nonprofit, and we'll talk about the Inflation Reduction Act and their beautiful marriage. We'll be right back with a brief messages.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network. Roberta's was founded in Bushwick in 2008 and has become one of the most iconic restaurants in the country. HRN made its home inside of Roberta's in 2009, and together they have become part of the DIY fabric of the neighborhood. Roberta's is open for lunch and dinners 7 days a week and serves much more than just the famous wood-fired pizzas. Their team dreams up new salads, pastas, and sandwiches on the regular. Roberta's Tiki Bar is alive and well in the back garden, serving up frozen drinks in the summer and hot toddies in the winter. Stop by the bakery and takeout spot next door for fresh breads, sticky buns, and pizzas to go. But Roberta's also extends beyond Bushwick, with multiple locations in New York City, Long Island, and Los Angeles. You can also find their frozen pies in grocery stores around the country. The spirit of Roberta's, like Heritage Radio Network, is everywhere. Here's to many more years of pizza-powered radio. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
Hey, we're back. So, June and Angie, I would love for you all to talk about your new nonprofit. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm excited for it.
Yeah, so it's an amazing venture, and we want to thank you for taking part of it. It's called the Provost Farm Heritage Center and Community Garden. The idea came about when we were renovating an old farm shop on our property. The farm shop renovation came before the nonprofit idea. The farm shop renovation came out of the fact that we were just cleaning up around there, and like our elders would come by and say, man, this is starting to look nice. This reminds us of when we were young. We had no place to go to. So the farm shop was like the community center on the weekends or holidays, right? That was due to segregation. So our aunts and uncles and grandparents all gathered for a crawfish ball or a barbecue at the farm shop when the weather was cool, because it's very hot right now. So that was one of the things that was like, that is a well-known thing in South Louisiana, is like either we're at somebody's house playing cards or dominoes, or we're at the farm shop balling crawfish or barbecuing. So that was the idea of that. And we were like, man, this would be awesome if we were able to bring some programming here, because folks are always asking, can we come visit y'all? Can we come take a look at the farm? And we were like, that would be awesome. But is there something more that we can do that not only impacts us, but impacts folks around us? And people can use it as an example or partner with us so that we can affect things nationally, especially for BIPOC farmers. And so that's really where it is. And so we're looking to do programming that involves culinary students, especially young Black culinary students studying food ways, so that they can come source from local farmers here and from our garden to sort of chef it up. And because, Louisiana is the best place for food. I'm sorry. But and also do field days, farm tours, get with young students so that we can take them around to see different farms in the area, and just do like simple community development projects. We live in a very flood prone area. And I believe the average age of the person living here in New Iberia is about 37 years old. So we're a fairly young community, but we also have a senior community here, right? And so just making sure that folks are able to live their best lives, to get out of the floodplains, get some homes elevated so that we're not pushed out and big mansion beach homes come this way. And that we can just prosper as a community and move forward in a way that brings healing to all of us.
And for me, I think that is like the most exciting venture we took on. I mean, it's like every day is like I am there either cleaning up or rearranging, because the shop was dilapidated from hurricanes, and it was a complete turnaround from where it was to where it is now. And we're hoping for a ribbon cutting sugarcane festival weekend, which is pretty much the last weekend in September. And why we think that's full circle, because in 2018 our home was foreclosed on sugarcane festival weekend, the weekend that you should be celebrating. Because you just about finished planting sugarcane, right, and you're about to start harvesting. But in 2018, the nightmare is when the sheriff came knock on the door and said, you have 24 hours to get all of your belongings out the house. But Sugarcane Festival weekend allowed us to have 3 days.
Because the courts were closed.
So we just find it would be full circle to have a ribbon cutting the Sugarcane Festival weekend this year, and we're so excited. We're even talking about bringing some Black farmers from across the country, especially Tim Pickford, who we become like great friends. We're family, and we're trying to get him down to celebrate that weekend with us as well. So
right, and
I can't wait,
and let everyone know how important they are to us, and just show appreciation for folks like you all who have supported us and been like family to us along the way. So
I can't wait. I'm still waiting on my Coubion. I'm still waiting to go to the trail ride with y'all. So I'm excited.
Let me tell you, before we got on this podcast, tell her what we were listening to.
Yeah, you was listening to some
Chris Aldwin.
Yes.
Getting ready.
Girl, look, I got my glitter pants. I have my cowboy boots. Let's go.
I love it.
Yes, indeed. No, but I saw that you all went to DC recently. I want you all to talk a little bit about why you went to DC and a little bit about how the Inflation Reduction Act is impacting Black farmers.
Right. So our first trip to DC, it was for a descendants event at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And we also met with Senator Booker's office to discuss with him ways that the Inflation Reduction Act could help us, because we still, although we've been through two litigations, there is still this open-ended issue with the USDA and USDA debt. And so we went to DC to speak with Zach Doshino, who's the head of FSA at the USDA, and Senator Booker's office, had a really great meeting with them. But there's still these past issues that have to be rectified that are affecting us currently. And so like most Black farmers, we are still waiting, right? So we've been able to get some debt paid from the Inflation Reduction Act. We are waiting on 22007, which is about the discrimination payments that you as a Black farmer or someone as a Black farmer can apply for to get financial assistance if you can prove that you've experienced discrimination. But let me be clear, this is financial assistance. This is not compensation for discrimination, because compensation for discrimination opens up the door and sets precedent for reparations. I'm going to say that again. This is financial assistance. This is not fully what we need. We need reparations. In order for this to be something that really gives us the value of our work and what we've lost, mentally, physically, financially, all of those things, we need compensation. So we will continue to activate ourselves and try to get others activated around the fact that Black farmers, Black people need reparations in this country in order to really be able to move forward with our lives. Because there's always going to be this tug and pull with us as Black farmers if we're not properly compensated.
What would reparations look like for you all?
I was talking to Dr. Julianne Malvo, who is a distant relative of mine. I was talking to her about that the other day at a panel discussion we were on together in DC, and she's a pretty well-known economist and dean at SoCal. And she asked me the same question, and I said, well, when I say support Black farmers, I mean pay Black farmers. So that means reparations equals payment, right? But one of the things that I know very well as Black people, if we are paid, unless there are repairs to systemic laws, that money can be stolen right back from us. So pay us, give us the laws that protect that money, and then lastly, show us how to multiply those dollars and create real wealth for our communities. And so that's what reparations looks like to me. It's like a holistic approach that involves a big check and protecting that check.
And me and Mr. Pickford always talk about that. And it's just like, at his age, he said, June, I still want to farm. He loves it that much. And we talk about that often. He said, look, I just want enough money to get me a farm so I can get back and play in the dirt. And as Black farmers, that's what we want. We want to continue farming, get the next generation of farmers going.
Right. And, a lot of folks who oppose reparations always come up with the idea, but at what cost? That costs too much. It's too divisive. What cost is that? But I always ask, well, if we don't do it, then what happens? If reparations are not provided, tell me what happens to us as Black people. What happens to our laws? We can see right now what's happening with the laws in this country, what is happening with our climate, what's happening with all of these things that will eventually affect us all, no matter what color we check off on that ethnicity box, right? And so it's about making sure that when we are paid, we are protected. And that means that just like through the freedom of enslaved people or the integration of schools, all of these things were fought for by Black folks. We've opened the door for equality and equity for so many people. And so now it's time for us to start recouping. And when we recoup, again, we make it better for everyone.
Ooh, y'all are preaching today. Y'all are preaching. Come on now, let's go. I really, just want to say that I am so proud of you all. You all are a voice for so many who, just for centuries, have had, a very challenging, path in farming, and I think when I think about I remember, June, that you did you were cultivating some sugarcane, and you were able to do a partnership with a soda pop company. And I remember tasting that. I don't remember the name of it offhand, but I just remember tasting that soda pop and drinking it. And I was just like, whoa, just a difference,
right.
And yeah.
It's Boomy cane water. So they're actually, they are, I would say they are more of like a fresh juicing company. And one of the things that they were based off of is that, sugarcane juice in some parts of the world is used as a medicinal purpose. It's sort of like an electrolyte drink, like Gatorade would be or Pedialyte would be, but it's more natural. So that's what they were doing. And so, yeah, and I think you can still find some of their drinks around Whole Foods and some other areas. But yeah, it's really good. I know they recently came out with a strawberry lemonade Boomy drink too, I think.
And with all that turmoil, I mean, we did get to experience a lot of things, when the story was going out. I mean, that's one of them. Actually, we were able to go to Ghana and consult for a sugarcane operation, or organic sugarcane operation, which was life-changing for us. I mean, we spent 2 weeks over there, and we also increased their production 37% that first year. So, it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Let me ask y'all, what can people do to support you all, aside from the nonprofit that you all are launching, and when it comes out, I'm sure many of our listeners, many of you all supporters will show up in full force, just to make sure that we support all of the hard work and the celebration, because this is a celebration of you all doing this. What can we do to support you all, to support Black farmers in our local communities?
So I would definitely say, just provide the best resources you can. I will always say that resources. Whatever your expertise is, whomever you know with a special expertise, whether it be legal, whether it be business structuring, whether it be some sort of technical support, those things are needed in our communities. Another thing is simple friendship and fellowship. Invite us to your home, come to our homes, talk to us on the phone, be a part of our lives. That's the best way that you can help us. Pray for us. We pray for you. Those types of things are what we need. See us as fully fledged human beings. And so, and meet us where we are, because a lot of Black farmers are coming with some trauma. They're coming with some very I like to call it, they've been affected a great deal by the Willie Lynch syndrome, to be honest. And so I think a lot of folks really need to be met where they are with a lot of grace and dignity. And so, yeah.
And I guess too, if there is a small farmer, try to buy from that farmer, support them. And I guess for me especially, is just to have a conversation with us. Just that can go a long way. I mean, when we was at our worst point, I felt I didn't have anybody to talk to besides, my wife, who supported me 1,000%. It's just sometimes you need that little extra conversation, just a little support, and said, we have you back. Just anything will go a long, long way.
And I can say some of the things that we don't need. I can tell you right now, Black farmers don't need another lending scheme practice. We don't need predatory lenders approaching our door. We don't need unethical behaving attorneys trying to say that they're going to get us so much X amount of dollars from the USDA when they have no idea what they are doing. We need people with the proper resources, with the best intent to help us achieve a more equitable lifestyle for ourselves.
Thank you all for sharing that. June, you have such a love for the land. I've always been impressed by that, and sometimes listening to your stories about growing up with your dad and, all of your family on the land. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a story from your childhood of just when you fell in love with sugarcane, when you fell in love with farming?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I always idolized my dad. So it could be hot like this. My dad would be in a truck with his air conditioning on, but the windows were down and he had that one arm out the window. I still do that today. I mean, just whatever it was, my dad would do, I would copy it. But I remember and I think that's why I love planting cane so much now. And if you ask any sugarcane farmer, they say planting cane is the worst time of the year because it's, you have so many different things going on at one time. But for me, it was always my favorite because I remember walking with my dad before I even got on the tractor, walking with my dad, crossing the rows. And when you see what you planted 2 weeks ago finally start popping out of the ground, and my dad would always get on one knee and just count the cane and just see how wide of a stand it is, how good it's coming out. And I remember that. I don't know how old I was, but I remember that. And I still get down on my knee right now and check cane out. It's just, I mean, when I say my dad was my hero, I mean, he was my hero. I mean, he taught me everything I know. He taught me my work ethics. I mean, everything is just, I think that's what I remember the most is just him taking me riding after school, and we go and look at cane that we just planted, and just crossing the rows and him explaining to me why we need a drain here to drain the water. Just those simple things that you take for granted, but it was just preparing me, for doing what I'm doing now.
And you all are still young farmers, so I'm curious what you all have to say to the next generation of farmers, because there is a rise of young farmers, but some of them start and then stop, just because they realize, this is really a battle. You got to love this.
Right. I think one of the things is that you have to have a great business plan. And at the time that we are, when there are so many inequities, you have to be very creative. So to farm, you have to love to be able to produce and create, because that's what farming is. But think of innovative ways to operate and move your farm. There's been a rise of urban farming for Black farmers, but there's a decline in row crop farming. And that's a real issue, because we know row crop farming is where a lot of our generational wealth is held, and that's where a lot of land is held. So I think folks need to be, whether you're rural or urban, need to be very creative and be able to not surround yourself with folks who like to hoard information, but folks who like to share information to make your production or whatever it is more valuable and more profitable to you. And when I say profit, I don't just mean the dollars that come in. I mean the prosperity in terms of like your family's health, your neighborhood's health, all of those things I think are, for me, when I talk about wealth and prosperity, that's what I'm thinking about.
And in 1920, there was 920,000 African-American farmers. Now we're less than 35,000. I mean, we need that young generation up and coming because, I mean, the rate we're going right now, that number is, we're going to lose thousands every year. And for us, we want the young kids to get inside of a tractor and look inside that tractor is the best office in the world. I mean, some of the tractors now have like 3 computer screens. It's air conditioning, radio. We always tell people it's nothing better than waking up a Sunday morning, jamming to some Zydeco music and tilling the soul.
It's the best.
We want young kids to experience that because it's something tremendous about it. It's just, and we need that next group of young African-American farmers coming. I mean, we definitely need it.
Right. I think in order to encourage the next generation, we also need to be able to communicate what agriculture and farming is effectively. If we repeatedly talk about agriculture or think of it as you've got to always have a hoe in your hand, you can't mechanize, you could only grow a small plot of land, I think that's doing us a disservice. I think a farming operation is whatever you make it, as long as you can be successful. One of the things that in communicating the aspects of agriculture and Black farming, I always like to tell younger folks, it was Black farmers who mechanized the industry in itself. You think about Norbert Ryu, Julian Leonard, George Washington Carver, we can go Fannie Lou Hamer, we can go on and on and on with all of these names of folks who worked in a rural farming industry and made it better for this nation. And so another thing I like to say is that Bill Gates is the largest farm landowner in the United States. So if farming is good enough for Bill Gates, then it is certainly good enough for my young brothers and sisters, for who they are descendants, most likely of agricultural producers. And so it's very important that I think we effectively communicate what agriculture is.
You all have such a beautiful marriage. Every time I'm around you all, I just feel all gooey and gooey cake. How does your, do you practice some type of self-care? Because I say this because there's so many farmers, on a national level that have committed suicide, broken marriages, broken families, but yet you all, are so united when you all speak, when you all are together, you don't leave each other's side, and you can see the love between the both of you all. What keeps you grounded, and what advice do you have for any married couples, who are also farmers?
Well, before you talk, like when you said a lot right there, Zella,
I always do.
but the stress is real, and I tell people, I contemplated suicide. Because we not only lost our farm, we lost our home, we lost families, land, we lost a lot.
Some family relationships.
I mean, I literally contemplated suicide. I mean, we went through a spell for 2 weeks. We couldn't buy a loaf of bread. I mean, and I know Angie looks at me crazy when I say that, but she could have actually, because it took a lot for her to stay right there. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, literally couldn't buy a loaf of bread, but she was there for me from the start to finish. And our love, if anything, grew stronger. I mean, I love her with all my heart because, she stood by me, my family. I mean, it's because of her I'm still sitting here and able to talk today.
I have to say one of the things that keeps us going is that we support each other. We have a lot in common. June and I both met each other later on in life. I was 28, you were 30, or was it 30 and 32? I don't remember.
30 and 32.
Okay, yeah. So we met later on in life. And so, we already had these ideas of where we wanted our livelihoods to go. And we had commonality in coming from farm families. And knowing like how steadfast we are in making sure that we honor our ancestors and our elders brought us together. And also just the genuine handsomeness of this man is, it's hard to resist. What can I say? So, I mean, like, we just are each other's best friends. And I think that to make a relationship work, whomever you're with, whether you're married or not, if your partner is there and is your best friend, you will be successful, because you need a best friend to get through life if you're going to share yourself with another person that way. Because we all know life is not perfect for anyone. But when you face major hurdles as we have, it's important to have your best friend. And that's exactly what I think June and I are to each other.
Listen, I know my listeners are grabbing a box of tissues after you guys got it.
And I have to give a shout out. I mean, June talked about his father, my father-in-law, who is now deceased, but we know he's looking at us and smiling and probably laughing at us half the time because we're so goofy. But my mother-in-law, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, those folks have shown really great examples of what married life is. And so we just try to emulate that. And even whenever they would see us falling off the trail of like married life, they would be like, get back on it. Y'all stick this out. Y'all are made for each other. And so, they were the best examples, I think, of teaching us how to respect one another and have that mutual honor of one another in our relationship.
I think also, Southern culture as well, and possibly just you all, the region you're in, New Iberia, right. Creole culture. Could you talk a little bit about, Creole culture in Southwest Louisiana?
Yeah.
And tell us some of your favorite dishes.
So I would have to say my favorite dish is probably char-grilled oysters or crawfish pie. I also like smothered chicken, but I like smothered chicken when it's cooked in a stew, like stewed chicken. When they put the little boiled eggs, that reminds me a little bit of the dishes we had in Ghana. Some of that jambalaya, that reminds me a lot of the jollof. I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite dish because the food here is so good. And that's what Creole culture is to me, right? It's this like honoring, even if you don't even know it, you're honoring your ancestors from this West African culture brought here to South Louisiana. And so it transpires in the music, the food, the people, how we greet ourselves. That Creole culture is so West African in all those many ways. And so, it's just like, we love it. I mean, that's why we fight so hard for where we live, because we are country folk living in South Louisiana, and we couldn't see ourselves living in any other place.
Yeah, can't say that enough. And I think for me, one of my favorite is okra, which we are growing right now too, and hopefully we're gonna start donating because our freezers are getting a little full. So I think okra and like you say, this community. I mean, we're country folks too, so definitely
right.
And them Creole cowboys.
With that handkerchief in that back pocket.
Well, I want to thank y'all for joining Culture and Flavor. Really appreciate the work that you all are doing. We pray for you. We support you all, and we thank you just for your light, and I hope, you all have a great summer, that you all stay cool. And, we're looking forward to seeing you all soon in New Orleans. And, we thank our listeners for listening to another episode of Culture and Flavor with Zella Palmer. Thank you, June and Angie.
Thank you, Zella.
Zella. Thank you so much.
Culture and Flavor is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
It's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be, and realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to The Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.